that child is basically terrified of her.
God made man in his own image, and he created woman out of Adam's rib.
Lady Colin Campbell is no stranger to public opinions and unexpected moments. Over the years, she has made headlines for her outspoken views, royal biographies, and fiery personality.
Lady Colin Campbell, one of the most outspoken royal insiders.
But this time, it wasn't a scandal or a controversy that put her in the spotlight. It was a simple yet profound question from a little girl. When the child asked Lady C about God, no one could have predicted the emotional response that followed. But what exactly did she say? And why has this heartfelt exchange captured so much attention? Join us as we look into details of this touching moment that left everyone speechless. A difficult question. Lady Colin Campbell had attended countless social gatherings in her lifetime, grand balls, and exclusive luncheons. She had grown accustomed to the curious questions of strangers, whether about royalty, scandal, or her past. But tonight at this laid-back charity dinner, she isn't expecting something like this kind of talk. She had just stood near the refreshment table, chatting amiably with some of the guests, when suddenly a little girl walked up to her. The child had delicate features, wide, searching eyes, and an air of quiet hesitation. One of the organizers introduced her as Emily and elaborated that she had come with her mom, who had received support from the charity at hard times, becoming stronger as a result. At first, the girl had simply stood there, shifting from foot to foot, clearly working up the courage to say something. Then for a moment, she looked up at Lady C and asked if she believed in God. The question had taken Lady C by surprise. People usually wanted to know about royalty, her books, or even the scandals she had witnessed. But there's this youngster, barely 10 years old, asking something much deeper and more profound. She'd been thinking hard about Emily, and then finally asked her what had prompted her to ask such a question. Emily had been hesitant, and finally opened up that she sometimes had wondered if God really loves everyone. If he did say that, then why do awful things happen to nice people too? Why did life feel so unfair? For a long moment, Lady C had remained silent. It was not an unfamiliar question. She had asked it herself many times in the silence of her own thoughts. She studied the child's face, trying to sense that it was more than just casual interest. It was tinged with sadness, pain, confusion, and possibly loss. And so, she answered honestly. She told the girl, too, that she had struggled with the unfairness of life sometimes. She had spoken about her own childhood, how, due to a mistake at birth, she had been raised as a boy, despite knowing in her heart that she was not.
My gender is female, and everybody by now knows that I was brought up in the wrong gender.
She had described the confusion, the isolation, and the times when she had pleaded for someone, anyone, to listen and believe her. Emily had listened intently, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. She had asked if anyone had helped her, and Lady C had explained that for years, no one had. Society had insisted it knew better, forcing her to live a life that wasn't hers. It took time, courage, and the hand of her grandmother to finally reclaim her identity. Emily asked her if she had been angry at God. She exhaled slowly before admitting the truth. Yes, she had been furious. She had questioned why she had been given such a difficult path, why she had been denied the ease of a normal life. For years she had believed that God had turned his back on her. But over time, she gradually saw things in a new light. The struggles she had faced had not broken her. They had strengthened her. They had given her a voice, one that had not only allowed her to stand firm in her truth, but had also helped others who felt lost and unheard. Emily had remained quiet for a moment, her small fingers twisting the hem of her dress. Then, in a voice very soft and barely heard, she asked if that meant God really still loved people and still cared even when bad things came their way. Lady C had looked at her and, without hesitation, had told her that she believed he did. She used to say sometimes life throws us curveballs as lessons that shape us, make us tough, and above all, let us make a difference to others. The little girl's eyes sparkled as she processed those words. Then, just as her mother called her from across the room, she looked back at Lady C and, with quiet sincerity, thanked her. As Lady C watched her walk away, she felt an unusual tightness in her chest. She hadn't thought she would share such a deeply personal part of herself that evening, let alone with a little one at that. But maybe faith wasn't only about never asking questions or always smooth sailing, believing there was never a time for hurt and pain. Perhaps it was about enduring, believing that, even in the darkest moments, there was a purpose to the pain. What incident was Lady Campbell referring to? The extraordinary life of Lady Colin Campbell. Georgia Ariana, better known as Lady Colin Campbell or simply Lady C, is a British Jamaican author, socialite, and television personality. She has really attracted attention because she is so blunt and outspoken, and has written 7 unauthorized royal biographies about the royal family in Britain. Some of her notable works include books on Diana.
Lady Colin Campbell's book, Diana in Private, but it's just opened up a whole can of worms for me.
Princess of Wales, one of which made the New York Times bestseller list in 1992. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, along with her husband, Prince Harry. Lady C's life story, however, is just as fascinating as the subjects she writes about. Born on August 17, 1949, into the wealthy and influential Ziadi family in Jamaica, she had an unusual childhood that shaped her into the person she is today. Her family has Lebanese heritage and is well known in high society circles in Jamaica. Her father is also quite successful, owning a big department store too. Lady C's life took an unexpected direction at birth. Medical staff misidentified her sex because she had a birth defect with her genitals. Following the advice of the medical staff at that time period, her parents chose to raise her as a male boy and gave her the name George William Ziadi. Relatives questioned her gender when she was age 3. Her parents refused to acknowledge that anything was amiss. Her parents forced her to be a boy, and they started hormone treatment to fix what they perceived as a boy. Lady C later shared in interviews that, at the time of her birth, medical professionals often decided that any baby born with a genital abnormality should be raised as a boy because men were considered the superior gender.
Because when I was born, that's what happened to girls who were born with certain deformities. It happened even long after.
She explained that in those days, society believed it was better to give a child the supposed advantages of being male rather than let them grow up as a deformed girl. It was simply the way things were done at the time, even though it caused great distress for those affected. As she grew older, Lady C knew, deep down, that she was a girl. But her dad just wouldn't sign on to her existence or do anything about the situation. It wasn't until she turned 21 that her grandmother stepped in, giving her the financial support she needed to undergo corrective surgery in New York. This life-changing procedure finally allowed her to live as the woman she had always known herself to be. Looking back on her childhood, Lady C has spoken about the trauma she endured due to being raised in the wrong gender. She once revealed that if she had been born 2 decades earlier, medical advancements wouldn't have been available to help her, and her life could have turned out much differently. Yet what she also says is that her very different upbringing actually turned out to make her stronger too. Instead of feeling embarrassed, she really opened up about her past story. What she found is that people are usually very kind and understanding towards stories like that. Over the years, Lady Colin Campbell has built a strong personal brand as a fearless and strong, opinionated lady. Despite all her challenges growing up, she never shied away and hasn't been afraid to be true to herself and to speak her mind. Today, She is known not only for her books on the royal family, but also for her appearances on television and her bold personality. Did this issue turn to a bigger problem for her later in the future? A love that turned sour. In March 1974, Lady Colin Campbell married Lord Colin Ivar Campbell.
Lady Colin Campbell actually married Lord Colin Campbell in 1974.
The younger son of the 11th Duke of Argyll, after knowing him for just 5 days. Looking back on their whirlwind romance, she once reflected that he had the most commanding presence of anyone she had ever met. She had found him to be confident, charming, and full of decisiveness, qualities that had drawn her in so quickly. Their honeymoon took them to Jamaica, where she introduced him to her world before they traveled back to Scotland to meet his family at Inverarray Castle, the grand ancestral home of the Argyll family. Everything had seemed perfect on the surface, but beneath the glamour of their aristocratic life, cracks were already beginning to show. Just 1 month after they wed, a journalist uncovered Lady Colin Campbell's birth certificate, leading to scandalous rumors about her past. Some publications falsely claimed that she had been born male and had undergone a sex change, a story that spread rapidly and put a strain on her already fragile marriage. She later admitted that her husband reacted in a devastating way. He had been shocked by what he had heard and admitted that after she confided in him, he could barely look at her, let alone be affectionate toward her. The public scandal only worsened their relationship. Lady C told of the feeling of the sadness it cost her later, but it was indeed more than just the rumors that made her leave. There was also something very wrong with her husband's behavior. She left him after 9 months, citing his abusive nature and struggles with drug addiction as the real reasons for their split. Their marriage ended officially just 4 months later, and they finally saw their union through to the end. Lord Colin Campbell eventually spoke about the marriage years later, breaking his silence after 4 decades. He sort of stood there speechless and dazed when he first heard about his wife's background. He thought back to when he had received a call from his brother, Duke Argyll. The big man asked bluntly if he recognized that what he had married clearly looked female on the outside, yet was really a man. That left an impression of suddenly having a very big secret hanging over him. The news had left him stunned, and he claimed that from that moment on, he could no longer see his wife in the same way. He even went as far as to describe her as trouble with a capital T, warning others to steer clear of her. But Lady Colin Campbell certainly didn't sit by silently and take those accusations to bed. She took legal action against multiple publications that spread the false narrative about her, successfully suing them for defamation. Later on, she accused her ex-husband of selling that false story to the press, and that really deepened the marital rift they had. Despite the painful end to her marriage, Lady Colin Campbell moved forward, building a life and career on her own terms. Interestingly, through her marriage, she became connected to some of Britain's most well-known figures. Her stepmother-in-law was Margaret Campbell, Duchess of Argyll, a woman famous in her own right, and through that connection, Lady C was indirectly linked to Dame Barbara Cartland.
Barbara Cartland, and it's actually rather charming.
The step-grandmother of Princess Diana. Did her love life affect her in any way? A mother's love. In 1993, Lady Colin Campbell made a life-changing decision. She adopted twin boys, Dima and Misha Ziadi. At the time, she was in her early 40s and had long accepted that she wouldn't be able to have biological children. But that didn't stop her from wanting to be a mother. Years later, in an interview with Hello, she pondered her journey to motherhood and told herself that her 2 boys mean everything to her. She says that because having her own babies is out of the question, adoption is the best way to make a family. It really shows how much she wants a family of her own. Sometimes it's not about biological children at all, but about building a family in ways that work best for you. She also admitted that bringing the boys into her life had given her a deeper sense of purpose. Raising her sons, however, wasn't without its challenges. Just a year after their adoption, she found herself in the middle of a troubling situation when social services launched an investigation into her home. This all started because there were allegations that her twin boys were not living very well, and they have had some serious accidents due to dog bites. According to reports at the time, a friend of Lady Colin had made the claims in an attempt to take custody of the boys and raise them herself. It was a stressful and painful time for Lady Colin, as she was forced to defend her parenting while also fighting to keep her family together. Despite early controversy, both sons grew up to appreciate their mother and grew up big fans of her. Dima, in particular, has spoken publicly about how much she means to him.
Well, my mum, she's quite an outstanding woman, I must say, and I think it's been quite apparent.
In an interview with The Mirror, he described her as an inspiration, admitting that as he got older, he realized just how much wisdom she had tried to share with him. He acknowledged that many of the mistakes he made in life could have been avoided if he had simply listened to her advice from the start. But while Lady Colin Campbell found deep fulfillment in motherhood, her outspoken nature and strong opinions would later stir even more controversy. A warning and a comparison. In April 2019, Lady Colin Campbell shared her thoughts on Meghan Markle, drawing a comparison between the Duchess of Sussex and her late friend, Princess Diana. In a conversation with The Independent that shone a light on the similarities that stood out between these two women, she reflected deeply. She described both as intelligent, ambitious, and strategic in how they navigated life in the public eye. She did note that yes, both shared these features, but there were also very important differences as well. According to Lady Colin, Meghan was much more academically inclined than Diana and had received a stronger formal education. She also noted that Meghan carried herself with an unusual assertiveness, and there's something a bit unsettling about that as well. She expressed her hope that Meghan would understand that her perspective was not the only one that mattered, and that she would learn to consider different viewpoints. Lady Colin went on to talk a bit about what sometimes made Princess Diana a bit anxious and insecure facing daily life challenges. She felt that contributed to the rough stuff Princess Diana had to navigate personally. She warned Meghan to be careful to avoid the same kinds of traps she fell into before, and she hopes that Meghan doesn't have the struggles of heart and emotional weakness that Princess Diana seemed to wrestle with. In her view, if Meghan experienced a crisis similar to what Diana had gone through, the consequences could be just as serious. Lady Colin, who had spent a long time studying the royal family, shared some advice with Meghan about her public role too. She warned against trying to become a political activist while having that position, saying that royal family business is always about representing everyone, regardless of what political views they have. She stressed that it was important for Meghan to recognize when to stay silent on certain issues, particularly those that could divide public opinion. Lady Colin knew the world was shifting and that there was a big growing movement for people to think more progressive and to care more about what's good for society. However, she pointed out that many people around the world, including religious and conservative individuals, did not necessarily share these perspectives. She suggested that Meghan should be mindful of this reality, as the royal family had a duty to connect with people from all walks of life. But just as Lady Colin Campbell was making headlines for her bold opinions, did she end up making an even bigger one with an unexpected twist of fate? Lady Colin Campbell's car crash. On February 23, 2017, Lady Colin Campbell found herself in court, facing charges related to a traffic accident that had occurred the previous year. The incident took place in May 2016, when she had been driving her Audi A6 with her son, Dima, and her dog as passengers. While on the A27 near Worthing, West Sussex, she collided with two other vehicles, an Audi and a Ford Focus, causing a pileup that forced authorities to close off the road. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt in the crash, but the aftermath was truly dramatic. Photos of the scene, published by The Sun, showed the wreckage of the vehicles involved. The sight of her car with its dents and scratches was a stark reminder that turns could be very unpleasant out there on the roads. Following an investigation, Lady Colin was charged with driving without due care and attention. The case went to Brighton Magistrates' Court, where she stood trial for her role in the collision. In court, she faced the reality of her momentary lapse in judgment, which had led to an incident that disrupted traffic and could have had far worse consequences. While Lady Colin has never been one to shy away from controversy, this was a different kind of challenge, one that put her driving skills and responsibility as a motorist into question. The judge declared her not guilty at last, ending another chapter of her wild life full of ups and downs. Though this particular incident did not result in any serious injuries, it served as a reminder that even a split-second distraction behind the wheel could lead to significant consequences. How does this interaction affect Lady Campbell's public personality? Was her response what you expected? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.